What form of liability involves the government prosecuting violations such as unauthorized access to systems? A. Civil liability. B. Self-regulatory enforcement. C. Regulatory enforcement. D. Criminal liability. Correct answer: D. Criminal liability. Which type of liability allows for individuals to seek redress for privacy breaches affecting them? A. Criminal liability. B. Civil liability. C. Self-regulatory enforcement. D. Federal enforcement. Correct answer: B. Civil liability. Breach of contract claims in privacy law enforcement arise from which scenario? A. Failure to report a data breach. B. Unauthorized access to systems. C. One party failing to honor privacy protections promised in a contract. D. Misleading consumers about privacy practices. Correct answer: C. One party failing to honor privacy protections promised in a contract. Which agency enforces privacy laws through civil actions in the U.S.? A. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. B. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. C. Federal Trade Commission, FTC. D. State Attorneys General, AGs. Correct answer: C. Federal Trade Commission, FTC. What plays a significant role in privacy law enforcement when an entity fails to protect personal information? A. Contract breach. B. Negligence. C. Unfair and deceptive trade practices. D. Self-regulatory enforcement. Correct answer: B. Negligence. Which laws are used by the FTC to pursue companies that fail to protect consumer privacy? A. Civil liability laws. B. Unfair and deceptive trade practices, UDTP, laws. C. Data protection laws. D. International privacy regulations. Correct answer: B. Unfair and deceptive trade practices, UDTP, laws. Which entity is not directly involved in federal enforcement actions for privacy and security laws? A. FTC. B. HHSC, SECD, GPEN. Correct answer: D. GPEN. The California Privacy Protection Agency is an example of what type of enforcement body? A. Federal. B. State. C. International. D. Self-regulatory. Correct answer: B. State. Which framework aids in addressing cross-border privacy concerns? A. GDPR. B. APEC Privacy Framework. C. PCI DSS. Global Privacy Enforcement Network, GPEN. Correct answer: D. Global Privacy Enforcement Network, GPEN. The PCI DSS is an example of what kind of privacy enforcement? A. Federal. B. State. C. Self-regulatory. D. International. Correct answer: C. Self-regulatory. GDPR affects US-based companies in what manner? A. Only within the US territory. B. Processing data of individuals in the EU. C. Through self-regulatory frameworks. D. By enforcing state privacy laws. Correct answer: B. Processing data of individuals in the EU. Which compliance challenge involves balancing EU data protection requirements with US legal obligations? A. GDPR versus PCI DSS. B. EU data protection versus e-discovery. C. APEC privacy framework versus GDPR. D. FTC regulations versus state laws. Correct answer: B. EU data protection versus e-discovery. What is a primary role of the APEC privacy framework? A. Enforcing US state privacy laws. B. Setting data protection standards across the Asia-Pacific region. C. Regulating EU data protection. D. Overseeing self-regulatory enforcement mechanisms. Correct answer: B. Setting data protection standards across the Asia-Pacific region. Which of the following is not a general theory of legal liability in US privacy law enforcement? A. Contract. B. Tort. C. International cooperation. D. Civil enforcement. Correct answer: C. International cooperation. How do state attorneys general typically engage in privacy law enforcement? A. By creating self-regulatory standards. B. Through civil liability actions. C. By initiating investigations and bringing lawsuits. D. Enforcing international privacy regulations. Correct answer: C. By initiating investigations and bringing lawsuits. Which statement best describes the enforcement landscape of US privacy and security laws? A. It is solely focused on criminal liability. B. It is a simple and straightforward system. C. It involves a complex and multifaceted approach. D. It relies entirely on international cooperation. Correct answer: C. It involves a complex and multifaceted approach. In the context of privacy law enforcement, negligence is most closely related to A. Failing to comply with international standards. B. Entities not taking reasonable measures to protect personal information. C. Misleading consumers about privacy practices. D. Violations involving illegal activities. Correct answer: B. Entities not taking reasonable measures to protect personal information. Which enforcement mechanism is crucial for holding companies accountable for their privacy promises and practices? A. Civil liability. B. Criminal liability. C. Unfair and deceptive trade practices, UDTP. D. Self-regulatory frameworks. Correct answer: C. Unfair and deceptive trade practices, UDTP. The GDPR sets a high standard for data protection and primarily affects A. Companies operating within the US only. B. US-based companies processing the data of EU citizens. C. State-level privacy enforcement actions. D. The development of self-regulatory standards. Correct answer: B. US-based companies processing the data of EU citizens. An effective privacy management strategy in the US should include A. Ignoring international data protection regulations. B. Focusing solely on criminal liability. C. Adopting comprehensive privacy programs and fostering a culture of accountability. D. Relying exclusively on civil liability actions for enforcement. Correct answer: C. Adopting comprehensive privacy programs and fostering a culture of accountability.